Three men who could never agree on anything, agreed on exactly one thing. And that one agreement might explain everything that feels wrong with your life right now. Freud mapped the unconscious and found a graveyard, everything civilization forced you to bury. Jung descended into his own madness and returned with a map of the shadow, the part of you that was never allowed to exist. Nietzsche declared that civilization had poisoned the human soul at its very source. Bury shadow poison. Three different thinkers, three different centuries of influence, one catastrophic diagnosis. And here is the question I will answer before this video ends. The one that haunted all three of them: if suppression is slowly destroying us, then who benefits from keeping you this way? The answer will disturb you because it is not who you think. By the end of this video, you will see civilization with completely different eyes. And you may never look at your own comfort the same way again. Three minds, one storm. It is 1895. Sigmund Freud is in a Vienna study, listening to patients describe desires they are horrified to admit, nightmares they cannot explain. He begins to suspect that the human mind is not a unified thing. It is a battlefield. Across the border in Switzerland, Carl Jung is absorbing every word Freud writes and starting to see further into the abyss than Freud dares to look. And in Turin, Italy, Friedrich Nietzsche has already collapsed in the street, mentally shattered. A man who spent his entire life warning humanity about the price it was paying for its own civilization. Three different countries, three different disciplines, three different vocabularies. Repression, shadow, morality. But follow their ideas to their core and you find something that should terrify you. They were all describing the same wound, the same crack running through every modern human being, the same catastrophe unfolding in silence beneath the surface of respectable life. The question is, where did this wound come from? And the answer begins with the man who first dared to look beneath the surface of the civilized mind. What Freud found there, nobody was ready to hear. Freud's forbidden map. Now, what I am about to tell you changes everything you think you know about why you feel the way you feel. Freud's central discovery was simple and shattering. Every desire civilization calls unacceptable does not disappear. It goes underground. He called this repression. When a child feels rage at a parent, when a person burns with desires society forbids, when instinct screams and civilization says no, the mind does not eliminate those impulses, it buries them alive. Buried alive, and they keep moving beneath the surface. Freud found that repressed desires do not quietly die. They rot underground, appearing as anxiety without a name, as anger that rises from nowhere, as dreams that wake you at 3 in the morning wondering what is wrong with you. As Freud himself observed, the mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. The vast majority of what drives you is invisible to you. If this is resonating with something buried in you right now, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of human wisdom with us. Because Jung took this map of the unconscious and drew something on it that disturbed even Freud himself. Jung's shadow world. But this next one, this is what Jung discovered that Freud refused to accept, and it is the part most directly relevant to your life today. Jung agreed with Freud, civilization forces us to suppress, but he went further. He said that everything society rejects in you, every impulse, every desire, every piece of yourself you were taught to be ashamed of, does not simply get repressed, it forms a second self. He called it the shadow. The shadow. The shadow is not evil. Jung was explicit about this. It is the total sum of everything about you that has ever been told. This is not acceptable. Your anger, your ambition, your sexuality, your hunger for recognition, your grief. The parts of you that were inconvenient for your parents, your teachers, your culture. Everything you were told to hide became the shadow that drives you without your knowing it. The shadow does not disappear. It grows, it accumulates, and it waits. In the words of the man himself, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And what Nietzsche would say next takes this into territory that even Jung found uncomfortable. Nietzsche's verdict. Now forget everything you just heard, because Nietzsche came at this from a completely different angle, and what he found is the most disturbing piece of the puzzle. Nietzsche was not a psychologist, he was a philosopher of values, and he asked a question nobody had dared to ask. What if civilization has not just suppressed our instincts? What if it has replaced them with something far more dangerous? He called it slave morality. Over centuries, Nietzsche observed, the values of compliance, humility, self-denial, obedience, had been elevated as the highest virtues. Humility, self-denial, obedience. Not because they lead to human flourishing, but because they make people easier to control. Slave morality does not just repress your instincts. It convinces you that your instincts are immoral, that your will to power is shameful, that your hunger for greatness is arrogance itself. Your own strength turned against you by the very values you were raised to worship. In Nietzsche's words, what is good, everything that heightens the feeling of power in man, the will to power, power itself. 3 thinkers, 3 frameworks, 1 wound that spans psychology, philosophy, and the soul. What happens when you map them all together? The next part is where this video earns its title. The same diagnosis. Stop and think about this for a second. 3 men, 3 completely different systems of thought, but listen to what they are actually saying. Freud says, civilization demands we bury our instincts or be cast out. Jung says, everything we bury forms a shadow that controls us from within. Nietzsche says, civilization has gone even further. It has convinced us our instincts were morally wrong to begin with. 1. Freud, buried instincts become repression. 2. Jung, repression becomes the shadow self. 3. Nietzsche, society rewrites instincts as moral failure. Different names, different frameworks. 1. Catastrophic diagnosis. Civilization requires the suppression of instinct, and that suppression is destroying us. This is the one thing they agreed on, and none of them were collaborating. They arrived at this truth entirely alone. Freud through the therapy couch, Jung through his own 6-year psychological collapse, Nietzsche through a mind that burned so hot it eventually shattered. 3 paths to the same abyss, and what makes this agreement urgent is not academic, it is personal. Because the civilization they are diagnosing is not out there in the history books, it is operating inside you right now, in your daily silences, in your daily performances, and what happens when that performance costs more than you can afford to pay. Civilization's price. Here is where the story takes a dark turn, because what civilization takes from you, it does not take by force. It takes it with your consent. This is what all 3 thinkers found so devastating. Civilization's bargain is not presented as a choice. It is presented as the only option. Comply or be cast. From the moment you are born, the suppression begins. You cry too loudly, be quiet, you feel rage, that is wrong, you have forbidden desires, those are shameful, you want recognition and power, that is arrogance. Every primal signal your body and psyche send you is filtered through civilization's approval system. And what passes, the approved, domesticated, safe version of you. The price of belonging to civilization is always paid in the currency of self. Freud made this argument in his 1930 masterwork Civilization and its Discontents. He argued that civilization is built on the permanent frustration of human instinct, not occasional frustration, permanent, as Freud himself wrote. The ego is not master in its own house. The neurosis of modern life is not a malfunction. It is the system working exactly as designed, and the next part shows you where that system lies, not in institutions, but in the face you see every morning in the mirror. The patient is you, but here is what nobody tells you. And this is the part that transforms this from philosophy into something you will feel in your body. You are not studying this from the outside, you are the patient. Think about the last time you held back something you genuinely needed to say. You swallowed the words, you made yourself smaller. You chose silence because you feared what your truth would cost you. That is repression. Now think about the person you quietly envy. The colleague who speaks too directly, the friend who lives too freely, the stranger who takes up space without apology. That discomfort you feel, Jung would say that is your shadow recognizing itself. The trait you cannot stand in others is almost always the trait you were forced to bury in yourself. Envy is the shadow, and the values you hold most fiercely, the ones you would never question. Nietzsche would ask, are those your values, or were they given to you by a culture that needed you manageable? If you know someone who feels trapped in a life that does not feel like theirs, send them this video. They need to hear this. What happens when these forces, unchecked, unacknowledged, finally reach their breaking point, because they always do, and when they do, the consequences are not merely personal, they are civilizational. When the dam breaks. Now what I am about to tell you sounds extreme, but history has proven it, multiple times. When the suppression civilization demands exceeds what human beings can endure, the shadow does not quietly accept defeat, it erupts. The buried self does not die, it waits, and eventually it detonates. This is precisely what Jung warned about when he watched the rise of fascism in Europe in the 1930s. He wrote that entire nations can fall into possession of their collective shadow. The repressed darkness of millions, the rage, the humiliation, the denied power, finding expression in leaders who promise to unleash it all. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. Freud saw the same thing differently. Civilization's demands create a permanent reservoir of frustrated aggression. When that pressure exceeds what the self can contain, the aggression turns outward, toward scapegoats, toward enemies, toward wars that could never be explained by economics alone. The violence we refuse to own in ourselves eventually owns us. Nietzsche predicted it. A civilization built on resentment disguised as virtue will eventually consume itself from within. Resentment disguised as virtue. But the most personal, most devastating consequence of suppression, that comes next, and it will disturb you even more than what you just heard. The great catastrophe. Let me pause here, because what I am about to say is the reason this video exists. All three thinkers arrived at the same terrifying conclusion about the modern human being: we are not whole. We are split. Freud said it plainly. Civilization creates a permanent tension between what we are and what we are allowed to be. That tension never resolves, it only accumulates, and that accumulation is the source of everything you cannot explain about yourself. The anxiety without cause, the depression without reason, the chronic sense that something essential is missing from your life. The gap between who you are and who you are allowed to be is exactly where the wound lies. Nietzsche watched this split and called it the systematic domestication of the human spirit, not through force but through shame, through the relentless rewriting of your deepest instincts as moral failures. And Jung gave the most precise diagnosis: the inflation of the persona, the false self that performs for the world while the real self is locked in the basement, screaming to be heard. The lion learning to live as a sheep. This is the catastrophe they all predicted. And now, the question from the beginning of this video: who actually benefits from keeping you divided against yourself? Comment one agreement if this is already changing how you see yourself, because the answer in the final part will make everything click into place. The way through. Who benefits from keeping you divided? Here is the answer that Freud, Jung, and Nietzsche all pointed toward, each in their own way. Any system needing compliance. Institutions that require obedience. Structures that need workers, consumers, and believers who do not ask too many questions. A divided person is a manageable person. Someone who has buried their rage, their hunger, their authenticity. They are predictable, they are productive, they will not overturn tables. A person at war with themselves has no energy left to question anything outside themselves. That is the answer. That is the open loop from the beginning of this video. Closed. But here's what all three thinkers also believed, and this is the part they are rarely credited for. The suppression is not permanent. The wound does not have to be fatal. Jung said integration is possible, bringing the shadow into consciousness, not to unleash destruction, but to become whole. Freud said awareness itself is the beginning of transformation, and Nietzsche said the will to create your own values. To become your own standard is the path to what he called the Übermensch, not a superhero, but a self-authored human being who owes nothing to the herd. The goal is not to destroy civilization. It is to survive it without losing yourself. They agreed on the catastrophe, and they silently agreed on the antidote: know the wound, own the shadow, rewrite your values. The wisdom of the ages is yours, use it well. Three men who despised each other, three different systems of thought, one devastating agreement. Civilization demands suppression, and that suppression is quietly destroying us. Freud showed you the mechanism. Repression, the graveyard beneath the mind where nothing truly dies. Jung showed you the shadow it creates, the second self that grows in the dark and steers your life from behind the curtain. Nietzsche showed you the system that justifies it all, the values quietly designed to turn your own strength against you. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The catastrophe they described is not happening out there in the world. It is happening inside you, every day, in the distance between who you are and who you allow yourself to be, in every word you swallow, in every dream you buried to be accepted, in every version of yourself you killed to belong. The most radical act is to know yourself fully and refuse to apologize for what you find. If you made it this far, prove it. Comment one agreement below. The wisdom of the ages is yours, use it well. If this unlocked something in you, subscribe for more explorations from the vault.